are registered to vote here in Otsego County, that they will do so. So we want to see if you haven't already voted, early voting, let's pass the word amongst the student population that your vote counts. So, you know, historically, young people don't vote in high numbers. I know they have a lot of other things on their mind, but it's important. It's important. Your vote counts as much as anyone else's does. So whatever you can do to spread the word tomorrow to get out and vote. And if you don't have access to the voting polls, we have just the person on board today who will see to it that you do have access to the voting polls. And that's David Hoteling, who will be talking with you. And he is the director of Oneonta Public Transit. He's the guy who's in charge of the buses. So before we go any further, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. One, the big thing is we continue to do very, very well in preventing another outbreak, keeping our numbers reasonably low, and having excellent compliance with all of the behavioral expectations that go along with the current environment. Chief Brenner says that he is not hearing of any concerns, any parties, any inappropriate gatherings. So for the last 6 or so weeks, just a big thank you, and please, to the students who are here today, if you can convey that to the rest of the students in any form that you access that you have, any ways, media that you have, my appreciation for the excellent job that everybody's been doing and keeping each other safe. So thank you very, very much for that. On small things, which I've said before, really become big things. A big thank you to all of the students who came out on Halloween and gave out candy to local youngsters who were in costumes trick-or-treating. There wasn't a lot of conventional trick-or-treating this year in the neighborhoods, so people took advantage of the opportunity to walk on Main Street and trick-or-treat. We had a very, very large turnout. We had dozens and dozens of students out there giving out candy. So a very big thank you to all of you for doing that. As I said previously, with the scarecrows that people came out and made, again, these sound like little things, but they're not. Little things are big things, and they really matter. And I've seen pictures of it all over on social media and people loving it. So thank you very, very much for that. I'm going to, President Craig, anything that you want to add before we go forward?
I would just echo your thanks. I saw the pictures on social media, and just in terms of the festivities over the weekend, and it's certainly the image that we all wish to portray, us working together to make our community a welcoming, hospitable place and having fun at the same time. So I think, tonight I plan to listen and learn about transportation issues and things going forward. As most of you probably know, if not everyone, there'll be a series of town halls with our COVID task force, and that work will continue. And I think that work will link to this group and others as well.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'm going to turn it over to David Hoteling. He is the Director of Transportation for the City of Oneonta. He's the guy who runs all the buses. And I know we had a bit of a controversy back in the summer as we approached the fall semester. But our goal for the rest of this semester and in planning for the spring semester is to work together and provide the transportation that is needed without jeopardizing anybody's well-being. and find the right balance for that, because you know, on campus, when the campus was open, there were strict rules about how many people could be in a classroom, how many people could be in a dorm room, but yet people would think nothing about cramming 50 people on a bus. So it's clearly not what we want to do. And also, unfortunately, in downtown Oneonta after 9 o'clock at night, the only thing that's open are bars, or searching for parties. So there isn't a whole lot to do. So that's why we took what was a fairly radical move in saying we weren't going to run the buses at night, but it was because we just couldn't envision having 50 people on a crowded bus under these circumstances, and we couldn't facilitate transportation to do the things that we all knew shouldn't be happening, which was either wait on lines to get into bars or go in search of house parties. But as we move forward, I just want to first of all commend David Hoteling. He is really a great guy who bends over backwards to provide transportation to everyone in this community. And he does an outstanding job in doing it. I mean, he's passionate about it and understands the importance of public transportation. So he's going to talk to you a little bit, and then he wants to listen to what are the things that are really important to you for the rest of this semester and the spring semester, and how we can work together to make it happen. So with that, David, it's all yours.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. And I'm happy to say that starting this morning, we started resuming service to campus to the SUNY route. We're running from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every half hour. So that route is going back around again. So I guess I'll start with a little bit, where we were and where we started and where we are now. Back in March, when the pandemic was reaching our area, we sat down with Personnel Director Greg Mattice, Dr. Georgeson, myself, and we came up with policies and procedures to, effectively clean the buses. We came up with a good sanitizing system for the floors, and we came up with a system that's electromagnetic fogging system to disinfect, and we did that after every shift of buses. All of our procedures went above and beyond anything recommended by the CDC, New York State Health Department, New York State DOT, and the FTA. After that, the city mandated health screens for all drivers, which we still are doing. Then in June, let's see, let me get back to my notes here. In June, OPT followed the governor's executive order to make mask wearing mandatory on all public transit, which we followed, and we're still doing. OPT is, we've gone to blocking seats off so we can allow for social distancing. That seems to have worked very well, but it has decreased the capacity of buses to only 30%. We're not seeing any overcrowding. People are being patient, so we're very happy with that part of it. Let's see. So OPT continues and will continue to, follow the recommendations by New York State Health Department, New York State DOTs, CDC, FTA, all the people we need to, as well as Dr. Georgeson. Her recommendations we've been following quite closely. We're going to continue to promote, and we are, the social distancing in the lobbies. But the biggest thing that I guess I'm going to ask for help and suggestions from is, how do we do this at the bus stops? That's where our problem's always been. We have no solutions to that at this time. These become very overcrowded. There's been talks with some of the people on campus about increasing stops, adding more stops so people spread out. These are just some of the things that we need to look forward to going ahead. Are there any questions or?
So just to clarify, David, you're looking for recommendations onto how to address sort of crowding at bus stops?
Well, the bus stops, primarily the ones that get overcrowded are the ones on campus. We've tried many different things. We've had people there trying to spread people out, and it hasn't been, I'll be honest, we haven't had it so much since this pandemic, but before it was a tremendous problem. And once we get back to some normalcy, we're going to have to learn what the new normal is, and we're going to have to figure out some way to have some distancing at these stops, or you can't have 150 people waiting all in a crowd anymore. It's just not going to work.
Is there any way we could maybe kind of have some sort of like app or something that almost like an Uber, where you can request a time and only a certain amount of people can be at the bus stop at that time? So because you have the 30-minute interval, so maybe if you need to catch a bus at 5:30, you put in for that time slot and only a certain amount of people can go at the bus stop at that time. I don't know how realistic that is, but that was just the first thing that popped into my head.
Sounds like a good idea, but it would be a logistic nightmare, I would think. The bus has to run on a time schedule. That's just the way we operate. So each stop is done at X time, X, Y, and Z. I'm thinking more, some kind of controls at the stops somehow, or I'm not sure. Maybe more personnel at the stops, to keep people. I don't know. I don't have all the answers to that yet. So I was hoping to have some or get some.
I can say that the tracking feature has helped me on so many occasions writing OPT, being able to plan exactly for when the bus is going to be at the stop. I know that it's not always 100% on. I'm sure there are enormous connection issues and things to contend with that. But perhaps investing in that so that people can wait in their own homes until the exact moment when the bus will be there might be worth looking into.
Okay, thank you.
Besides putting somebody at the bus stop, the only other suggestion I can have offhand is obviously notifying students or any members of the community that there's like a capacity limit to a room for fire hazard, for safety. And even now there's a capacity limit for how many people can be in a room so that they're spaced out socially, to have some sort of notice at the major bus stops to say, maximum X amount of people present here.
Could look into that as well. Thank you.
Also, like if we're worried about like social distancing at the actual stops, like maybe like I know at like stores they have like little spots where you have to stand. So maybe like putting those there would be also effective.
These are all great ideas. Thank you.
David, as you're thinking that this probably will not be a problem until the spring when we have many more people, on campus than we do now?
Yes, that is true. I mean, we don't have this issue right now, but we know it's gonna happen, and we'd like to be ahead of it. And that's why I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to get some ideas from people that use the system.
Is there any way we could be helpful, as our plans can be fluid sometimes, to take a census on ridership?
Well, I can tell you that the ridership last year, there was about right around 400,000 rides by the students last year. So it was like 380 something. So the students use the bus a lot. Now this year, the numbers are crazy low, but you can't use this as any kind of indication of what has happened, historically in the past. The system gets used a lot. And if you've ever been around on an evening, there's nothing to have 250 kids waiting at a stop. Excuse me for calling kids students. So, I just would like to, figure out a way that we could have a better system. That's all.
Most of the crowds, David, are, I assume, Friday and Saturday nights. Is that correct?
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, yes. We run an extra bus on those evenings as well, but it's still, it's busy. The evenings are busy.
Just out of curiosity, which bars are open right now, and or do you have any insight on which ones will be open when the students come back?
I have no insight.
I don't know. One of the concerns with, it's funny, there's always unintended consequences to everything you do. So the bars are operating at a greatly reduced capacity, which is good because we don't have a big crowd in the bar. But the other side of that is it results in a line of people closely packed waiting to get in, which is not a good thing. Or it means people, because they can't get into the bar, decide to go seek out house parties, which are actually worse because there's no controls over house parties. So, for that reason, besides having crowded buses, which are unhealthy in themselves, there's a concern about just bringing too many people downtown on the Saturday, and I guess Thursday, Dave is saying, nights, because there's really no good place to be. Nothing is open except for the bars, and if the bars have limited capacity, it drives people to house parties or wait on long lines. So this is the problem that we face when school opens, and we need to work together to find the right balance to make this work. And it's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge all around. Loading buses at the college, loading buses downtown, what hours we run the buses, how we're going to control not having too many people get on the bus, because the driver's not going to get out of his seat. And to be honest with you, most of our drivers are my age and older, and I'm 70. So they don't want to be in close contact with other people, because they're in that age range that is the most dangerous to contract COVID. So they're not going to get out of their seats to tell people that no more people can get on the bus. They can't monitor that themselves. So these are all challenges that we have to figure out together.
Is it possible to add additional stops and limit the number of participants waiting at a stop to a certain number?
That was suggested. I just don't know how you would, police that, so to speak. You'd have to have somebody there saying, okay, you've met the 73, 75 people maximum, move along. I just don't know how we would go about that.
I think if you tell students that, for example, there are 20 people allowed at this stop, if the driver pulls up and there are more than 20 people, the driver will continue on.
And, well, yes, that could be, but then you're gonna have, at some point, you're just gonna have a massive amount of students still at that stop. You know, the buses come every 7 to 10 minutes. I don't know. It could work, yes.
The unfortunate circumstance with that would be potentially a handful of people ruining it for the rest of the whole, for forcing themselves into the already 20 that have collected and making it 27, and then the bus doesn't stop for any of the 20 who were there originally.
David, I think the other risk that we have about, because I was thinking about adding more stops as well, like what Franklin said. I think you run the risk of the students will figure out which stops are better and they're more likely to be able to get on a bus. And you'd end up eventually, I would fear, having more and more students gathering at the earlier stops, and it would kind of defeat the whole purpose of what we were trying to do.
Also, it could just be very dangerous because if people are, wanting to get on that bus, like they might just, I mean, I don't know. It could turn into like actual like brawls. Like people might just be like, get out of here. Like, I don't know.
No, I agree.
And keep in mind, returning back to campus, some people have been drinking. So not everybody is in their best frame of mind for making rational decisions.
For the record, would adding additional stops at all intrude or impede upon the schedule that the bus needs to keep?
It may slow it down a little bit, but I don't think it would do anything drastic to it. You'd be loading less people, so you'd be getting out of there sooner. You may make that time up, some of it, but not all of it.
Okay.
It'd be something we'd have to, play with the timing on it, but it's all very doable.
Do you even have the personnel to like stay at the bus stops, or like would we need volunteers? Like how would that work?
We do not have the staff to do that, no.
I'm sure that like we might be able to, like if we ask like the CSRC Center for Social Responsibility, we might be able to, or I forget, I think that's the acronym. We might be able to get like volunteers to help like man the bus stations. Just an idea.
I've had talks with the student association about this, and they've come up with some ideas, and we've worked them back and forth, and we're still talking about some things. So there may be things down the road, because our contract is with the student association. So.
Would it be possible to have personnel maybe not stay at the bus stops, but be on the bus and get off the bus at each stop to perhaps like count each person getting on the bus, maybe with like a counter or something? And after the certain amount of people get on the bus, that's the only amount that's allowed until the next stop.
Well, we do that now. The driver actually does that now. We load everything through the front door, but you get to a point where, he shuts it off, but how do I say that? We still have the issue with barging and crowding and pushing, and so that's where it becomes an issue. I think one of the big things is probably manning some of the stops, having somebody there to kind of help with the loading. Just don't know who or where or how we're going to make that happen.
And I really want to, I'm sorry, Emma, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in addition to perhaps making the tracker a little bit more reliable, or in lieu of, I know I've met a lot of fellow students who have some difficulty interpreting the bus schedule and arrive early to be certain that they make the bus, for fear of missing that scheduled time. So I don't know exactly how it would work, but, perhaps there could be on OPT's website, it could say, the next time that the bus is going to be at whatever stop is this time, and really highlight it so that it's a little bit easier for students to plan around that so they don't accumulate at the stop. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I wanted to second Rachel's idea with volunteerism. If you had someone there in the flashy vests that people wear, you know, sort of guiding. The only problem that I would foresee with that, besides making sure that they're well trained, that they're enforcing it, and the fact that they'd be sitting around in the cold for an extended period of time at the stop, regardless, because you know the job really is only being worked for 2 minutes to 3 minutes before the bus shows up for anybody else who's trying to congregate there after the limit's hit. So I like the idea, but there's a lot of issues with it, even if we had the manpower.
Yes, there is. Anything else?
So I'm thinking maybe as assuming the semester evolves, you can keep track of somehow, monitor those times of day which may be most problematic, and then target those for having your support people or monitors at the stops. Because yes, it's a big job to do like all day long, but there may be, again, targeted times where things do tend to be most crowded and need the most support.
Sorry, I just thought of like kind of a crazy idea, but I don't know. What if like, because you know how you swipe your card on the bus? What if there was a way to swipe your card at the bus stop and then it will stop automatically after a 20 person or however many limit, and then it will until like the bus actually comes, and maybe the bus driver can go out and like reset it or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if that would work. See, we don't have any access, so to speak, to your cards. Our system is just a counter for your card. So
Yeah.
that's basically that's our only access. So.
In a perfect world, Rachel, with the technology.
Yeah, it's tricky because I'm trying to think of logistically, like there's things that would be efficient, but we just don't have like the access to them. So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, we're not on the cutting edge with technology, unfortunately. So we know what the problems are. We've got some ideas to start. The other issue will be nighttime hours. You know, one of the things that we have to keep in mind that things are so unpredictable right now. Come January, February, March, April, we don't know whether things will be the same, worse, or better. So it really, you know, we're going to have to just stay flexible, depending upon, you know, how the pandemic is going in this area. You know, we were hoping by last spring, by now we would be getting out of it, but we're not. We're actually, in some ways, things are worse than ever. So we'll have to just stay flexible. If there is still a high risk and there are still cases being transmitted and new cases popping up, you know, we have learned that most of the transmission takes place at night in bars or parties. And probably most of you are aware that we had, there's been a bit of a outbreak at Hartford College the past week or so. It's not a big outbreak, but they've had they have almost 30 active cases right now that have come up in the past week or so. A lot of that started with at Legends Bar on Market Street. Is it still called Legends or Reds? I forget. It's changed back and forth. But it's the bar right in the corner of Market Street and Main Street across from the police department and firehouse. The traces showed that most of the spread that's taken place at Hartford College started at that bar, at a get together at that bar. So, we have learned that, at least for us here, most of the transmission has taken place either at house parties or at bars. So that's, we need to be cognizant of that. And as I said, if the bars are reduced capacity, then people are looking for other places to go. So one of the thoughts we had when it looked like there was still a lot of contagion going on was to run buses downtown to sometime in the evening, 6, 7 o'clock, but run buses back a little bit later to make sure everybody came home. That would allow people to go downtown for dinner, go downtown to shop, go downtown to visit, but not stay late at a time when there's nothing else open but bars, or searching for parties. Again, hopefully things will be better and we don't have to be worried about it as much. But any thoughts on that, hours?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I don't think anyone would really. It depends, like, on what times people go to the bars. Like, it also depends on the actual bar. So I don't know how. The only thing that I'm concerned with is I know that a lot of students were like wanting to go to Walmart, or I know we had the student association like shuttles for that reason. And like, I know we're trying to prevent people from going to the bars and the parties, but at what time do you cut it off so that people can still, go, and people might have night classes. We don't know how it's going to look like later on, but like how it's that finding that middle ground between what's too late and what's too early for people that are actually just trying to, get their food or come home from classes and stuff like that.
Any other thoughts regarding times?
Hi, my name is Emma Sutkin. I'm an off-campus student representative, and I saw for next semester there's at least 50 classes being offered in person on campus that run until 8:30. So I was wondering how students would be able to return home safely and effectively if the buses only ran until 6 p.m.
That's excellent information for us to have, Emma.
Go ahead, Gary. Sorry.
So I think what we're going to need to do is hopefully organized through the student association and members of this group who may not be on the student association governing board can get together and put together a group of people who can work in partnership with David and his people in coming up with what is needed. We need to know, obviously, like Emma just pointed out, what the transportation needs are, not only of people on campus, but people off campus who have nighttime classes and have to get back home. As well as Rachel pointed out, some people may want to go shopping at Walmart, but can't get out until the evening time. So this is all important information for us to have. So I think the best way is we can get a good, representation of students on campus, off campus, people who are taking classes on campus in the evening, to work with David in letting him know exactly what the needs are, and then work together to come up with a plan that meets everybody's needs and at the same time keeps us all safe. I think it's going to be all working together.
Yeah, I know me and Olivia, who usually attends these meetings, we actually have our own committee that is like town relations. We're still waiting for members to join, but we can form that and then work with David on that, definitely.
This is where I go back to my earlier suggestion. If we can help with this, a survey that could take into could collect information like resident, student class schedules, work schedules off campus. I realized that there were patterns in place before the semester, but from what I'm hearing, and I guess what we would expect, that the patterns could be very different with subpopulations and not at all what we would expect intuitively. So I think through the use of technology on the college's end, we could find a subset of students that we would be most important to hear from, those who actually live within a commuter distance or on campus, and do a survey of that subset of the population. And I would say that would probably be, at the earliest, maybe like after Thanksgiving or, mid-December. And that could arm us with some good information. But I had one question I had. I've never been inside a bus, one of these buses, but is there room for any advertisements inside? Because I'm thinking there are some things that we should make clear regarding the uniform sanctioning document that I would hope was circulated. It became available, I know, on October 1st. And there's very specific guidelines and sanctions for people who either are hosting off-campus gatherings and not following the rules, or attending. And I think it would be a good moment for reinforcement and education. And that could be one opportunity. I'm sure that there could be public health campaigns if there's advertising space inside. And I'm sure these are things you've probably already discussed and talked about it. Just from my own knowledge, it would be helpful to know.
Yes, there is advertising space inside, so plenty of that.
And oh, I don't know who was. I was just gonna say, me and Olivia have also been working on a lot of PR campaigning, so that could be something we could also look into. Also, I had an idea for maybe students returning to campus or students off campus as well. Maybe we can have something like a mandatory module. Like we usually have something for like incoming students that is, for sexual violence and stuff like that. But maybe we can have one saying, so they know the information, like, this is what happens if you go to a party. This is what happens if you break these rules. It will lead to this. Because I feel like sometimes there's a lot of like not everyone really knows what will exactly happen. And maybe it's not like so straightforward that people are actually concerned about the repercussions. So maybe that's something we could also look into, because I feel like just an email, people will just breeze by that. But if they have to actually go through like a module, and it can include like proper safety measures, what you should do as well, not just the repercussions. But maybe that's something we could look into.
Franklin, I think we can share that with our COVID response team.
Absolutely. Actually, I think it's consistent with the pledge that the Office of Community Standards developed and submitted to the COVID response team for approval, that we're going to require all students to sign this spring.
Good. David, anything else that you feel we should address now or be thinking about as we get ready for the spring semester?
No, not at the present time. Nothing's coming to mind. I think we've hit on some really good things tonight, and I appreciate everybody's input.
What is the schedule? You starting this week, we're doing runs from campus again. Where can people access that schedule so that they know what's available?
It's on the website, and it's our normal, what we call the summer schedule, because it's just one bus. So it's a bus that leaves OPT at the top and the bottom of the hour, and it runs up through Center Street, the normal SUNY route, as everyone who uses the system knows what it is, up onto campus and then back. And then they can connect with all the other routes, to south side or wherever they need to go.
So to get to Walmart or other stores there, you would connect for another bus down at the OPT terminal?
Correct. You connect at the terminal to the south side bus and take the south side bus over to Walmart.
And are there evening hours or just daytime hours?
Just daytime. It's 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. right now.
Mayor, I have a question for David.
Okay. Go ahead.
My question was just about advertising. Is there a cost if we want to do public service announcements or, well, I don't know if PSAs is correct, but educational type things on the bus? Is there a cost for that?
We do have an advertising, yes, there is cost for advertising on the bus. You can call my office and we can discuss that because we do have some that we can work with.
Okay.
We
Do you have
can
some great
also,
discount for educational purposes?
Yes.
we can look at, waiving it under these circumstances, if it's something that's really in all of our interest to communicate. We can certainly look at waiving it.
Gary, I was going to say the same thing. I think this is really important and we're all under budget constraints. And this is certainly not something that was expected to have happened by the college. And yeah, I'm in full agreement.
David,
And
just to clarify, you stated that there's what I would refer to from being a student as the normal bus rounds, as well as the transfer for the bus downtown at the OPT station. I know there's two other services that I think were on the tracker app, one of them being Hillside. I didn't know if either the Hillside bus or if there was a separate bus system, if either of those are up as well.
Hillside is not operating at this time.
Okay, just for clarity, because I know Hillside is almost strictly students, whether they be at Hartwick or Oneonta. So.
Right. They're not operating. We are running a Saturday shuttle for shopping for them at this time, but that is all that we're operating for them right now.
And Hartwick has regular runs, daytime runs.
Yes, Tuesday through Saturday, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. I believe I got, yes, that's right.
Okay, so a lot to think about. We're going to have to, certainly David's going to need all of the information that you have in terms of schedules and needs. And then we'll sit down together and try to come up with something that just hits the right balance point. And then keeping in mind that whatever we come up with may need adjustments as we go forward. It may be working perfectly, it may not work perfectly, and we'll have to make some fine tuning. Plus the spread of the virus may get worse or better, which may require some fine tuning. So like everything else this past year, we're going to have to be flexible. Good. Diane, do you want to provide a bit of an update on what's been happening in Oneonta and this region over the last couple of weeks in terms of virus spread?
Sure.
Even just generally, if you don't have exact numbers there.
The county surpassed 1,000 cases this week. And that does represent sort of a gradual increase in the number of cases that's been happening in the month of October. In Oneonta specifically, for the month of October, there were 58 cases and 43 of those came in the last 2 weeks. If I can do this easily, let me just see here. All right. Wait a minute. All right, do you guys see this? No. Wait a minute, I think I have to go allow. There, do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so here you see, this is just Oneonta, not the county, but mindful that the city represents about half of the county cases at this point in time. You can see there's been somewhat of an upward trend, especially in the last 2 weeks. The majority of these cases are these. In the last 2 weeks, 43 cases in Oneonta, 29 were Hartwick students, 10 were SUNY students. And then, yeah, if you include November 1st, that's 34 Hartwick students, 11 SUNY students. So just being aware that we are seeing a bit of an upward trend. I'll get out of this now. I don't have any other graphics for you now. Wait a minute. Stop. There we go. But you know, things are going up everywhere in the world, in the country, in the state. I think it just, sorry about my phone. I think it just, we just need to be continually vigilant and mindful of doing all the things we are doing. The mask mandate here in the city, I think, is a good move. And whatever peer encouragement you student leaders could provide for your colleagues, both at SUNY and Hartwick, would be wonderfully appreciated by the city. Does anyone have a question for me?
Yes. So with regard to the chart that you showed, I just wanted to clarify that the bars represent the cases that were discovered on a given day.
Yes, well, the number of cases that were reported. So the county, and they're from the county health department, who's now been, who have been very good about sending us the Oneonta numbers, as well as the total number. So those were just the city of Oneonta numbers as reported by the Otsego County Department of Health. They don't give reports every day. So some of the big bars may have been from 2 days, but you could still sort of see the upward trend.
Right.
Well, what's interesting to me about that chart is if you adjusted it per the incubation period, it would immediately move over to the left, and you'd see, I think, mid-September, you know, that was really when the uptick of infection really began taking root sporadically. And then later people were tested and diagnosed. So, you know, it looks, you know, trying to remember weather patterns back then and all sorts of things. But, you know, it's interesting. Basically, it seems whatever population was left here in September, you know, just habits kicking in and, you know, becoming pretty constant over a period of time. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. We've always known there's been a low level residual. I also find myself wondering, you know, that my understanding is that the Hartwick students have mandated testing, whereas those of you SUNY students that live off campus do not. And could we be missing some cases in our off-campus SUNY student population? So for those of you who are living off campus, do you think that you're taking advantage of the option for testing on campus? Is that something that's being done?
Honestly, I know that's something that's being done, but I do live in Hillside and I don't drive. So I can't really I mean, even though it's a walk, but within my schedule, it's kind of hard for me to make room to go on campus every Monday or Tuesday and then to come back.
On the Cooperstown campus, I believe every student who lives in Otsego County has been going every week.
I'll speak for myself, living in Hillside, that for most Mondays I've made an effort to go. I've seen other students as well as faculty members present.
So right now I'm actually in Cortland, and I noticed that, because I don't know if it would be too much to have all off-campus students mandatory, but I know what Cortland has been doing is they have been randomly selecting students to go at a certain time. So it's not mandatory every week, but whoever gets randomly selected does it, and even if you're off campus, they do have to go. So I don't know if that's something that maybe we should, if that's a good idea to kind of, provide. I'm not too sure. But definitely what worries me is I have seen a lot in the news, people are worried about, like the whole second wave coming with the, as the colder months come in. I don't know about how true it is. I don't think anyone knows because it's so unpredictable, but that is obviously a concern that we have to keep in mind, especially if we do want students back in the spring, depending on what that decision might be. But yeah, I don't know. I don't live off campus, so I can't speak for those people that do, how they would feel about that option.
Diane, if I can go back to a concern that you raised, we actually test students on Mondays and Tuesdays on campus. It's required for on-campus students, and it's strongly encouraged for off-campus students. We, in fact, test more off-campus students each of those days than we do on-campus students. So there are off-campus students who are taking us up on the ability to test on a regular basis, and they are testing weekly. So yes, we would love for the entire campus population to test, but there are a significant number of off-campus students who actually do come to campus on a weekly basis and are taking us up on the opportunity to test on both Mondays and Tuesday. In fact, those numbers outnumber the number of on-campus students.
Great.
Diane, I'm glad you brought up the new mask ordinance. So let me just let everybody know what that is. Tomorrow night, the city council is going to vote, and I expect it to pass a local law regarding wearing of masks. There will be, masks will be required by local law in the downtown area at all times. And in the rest of the city, when you can't feel certain that you will be 6 feet away from another person at all times. They will also be required when you are in any business, whether it's a store, restaurant, bar, except of course if you are seated and eating, drinking. So it will be law that, and you may get a ticket from the police if you are downtown, and that applies to everybody, not just when I say you, I mean all of us. If any of us are downtown with not wearing a mask outdoors, even if we're far away from any other people. That's going to be the local law, and the police will have the authority to issue tickets. The fines, people ask, what will the fines be? The fines can be up to $1,000. However, we don't set the fine, the court does. So if you receive a ticket, the court will determine the amount of the fine. But the reason for it is that when you're downtown, there are people coming out of stores, people getting out of cars, people crossing the street. You can't be assured of always being distanced from people. So the right thing to do is downtown is to wear a mask at all times. And most people do. Some people just don't seem to get the message. Or as we know, masks has become political and some people rebel against them for political reasons. So it is going to be the local law that masks will be required at all times downtown. And the rest of the city only when you feel you cannot be sure to socially distance from others.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, for sharing that. Once that ordinance is passed, we will share that with our student body to make certain that they are aware. So we will send a mass email out to the campus shortly after the passing of that ordinance.
The way that'll happen is it'll be voted on tomorrow night, but I cannot sign it for 2 weeks because I have to hold a hearing at least 10 days after it's passed. So it is expected to take effect on November 17th, which I know is shortly before everybody goes home. But it will be in effect, as long as we remain in a emergency statewide, the local law will be in effect.
We have our town halls on Thursday. We'll have, several hundred, if not over 1,000 people, and we're happy to put out early notice of this passing during those sessions.
That would be very helpful. And again, it's not meant to be punitive. It's just, it's just like speeding. Most people do the right thing. Most people don't speed because it's a safe thing to do. But some people need a law in order to do it. So it's, unfortunately, that's the way it is. Sometimes you have to have a law to get people to do the right thing. It's unfortunate.
With the current standing of the law, I'm not familiar with it. I didn't know if there would be a sort of sunset as to if this is a permanent thing, or if there would be legislation necessary to overturn it at a later point.
No, it's written in a way that it automatically ends when the New York state of emergency terminates. Anybody else want to bring up anything tonight for discussion or information? Anybody? Okay. Well, thank you all. I think we had a good opportunity for discussion. I think we started the ball rolling on the issue of transportation, which is an important issue. I'm confident that we will together work something out that we all feel is the best it could be. Again, I think, those of you who work with David O'Taylor on this will find him to be a very easy person to work with who wants to do the right thing for everybody. I thank you all for taking the time to be here and contributing. And remember, tomorrow, please get the word out. And David, how do people get down to the polls?
Catch the bus.
It's at the Foothills Performing Arts Center on Market Street.
Yep.
Is the polling location.
So they can take the bus right down there, and it'll drop them right off in front of the trailways if they request it.
Thank you. Remember, your vote is important. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for taking the time. It's really appreciated.
Thank you.